technology, very important, science, the English language, and with the years. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Teach South Africa with the Chief Executive Officer, Sedibeng Ngubane, who joins us on the line. Welcome to Channel Africa. Pleasure to talk to you. Absolutely, always a pleasure. But I did mention
schools. We're not saying that they didn't have school, they didn't have teachers, right? Our biggest concern was, how do we bring in content-rich, highly qualified young people to teach in these schools? And so in 2009, our three founders got together. One of them, having been in the education space for a long time, he was a school teacher himself, Mr. Masemola, and got together with these two other founders, Dr. Diahu and Dr. Futi Mtoba, to bridge the gap. To come up with a program that bridges the gap to ensure that we have qualified people in the spaces delivering on these four subjects: mathematics, science, English, and technology. But doing it in such a way that, sometimes it matters on who's standing in front of you, right? If you have someone who looks like you, speaks like you, and probably has a background that is like yours, it gives you a bit of an edge to say, here's someone who was me one day and is now today an engineer. How did they get there? And we were quite intentional about STEM graduates. So we've got engineers, we've got statisticians, we've got scientists, we've got journalists, who are the people who are actually delivering this content in classes. And with that, we're actually covering two things. One is the skill shortage in schools, right, in these particular schools. And secondly, we always talk about how many graduates we have who are not in jobs, right? So we also cover that.
Yeah.
Two challenges: high unemployment rate in graduates, but also content-rich subject teachers in the schools.
Sedibeng, let's talk about the benefit for these graduates. As I understand, you are a non-profit organization. So when you do then attract these graduates focusing on these specialized subjects, STEM subjects, and they themselves are either pursuing a career in a particular field, what benefit do they have in going to these under-resourced schools and imparting that knowledge and quality education?
I think firstly, even in our recruitment and selection drive, we go to universities and we express upon these young people to say, you're about to get your degree. Would you like to put it to good use?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And we are guaranteed a certain number of placements from the Department of Education. So when we put, for instance, we recruit 50 people, we put them through what we call our AIP, which is the Ambassador Induction Program. And we then take them through our relationship with the Department of Education. We put them in these schools. One, the benefit for the learners, again, I reiterate that the benefit for the learners is you have someone who looks like you, who's probably the same age as you, who then speaks a language that actually propels you to do better and is able to break down concepts in such a way that they become part of your everyday language, because they are young, they're probably on social media as well. They speak a language that you and I probably don't speak, or you're young, so you probably speak the same language. But to break down concepts and use everyday life that applies to them, so they bring it closer to that learner. So they break it down in such a way that it is easy to understand. They are also accessible because they are young. They end up being more than just teachers. They become their mentors. Our ambassadors will talk about how they've kept in touch with all their learners. And when their learners make big decisions, they say, you taught me. And the reason why I passed maths is because you taught me.
Wow.
And today, this is what I want to do. So I think for learners, it is accessibility to young graduates who understand the content very well, can break it down, but also accessible. You can talk to them like you almost talk to a friend, So I think that's the first thing for the learners. And for the schools, they bring a certain level of professionalism, which is slightly above par, and they bring in other concepts that also spur on the teachers that are already in those schools to say, I never really thought about this way. You've been teaching for 15 years. This is my first year, at university, I just learned this. Or in my research, I've also found that this is another way of teaching, particularly when you look at digital skills. It's always a big thing.
Yeah.
They use AI. They are more technically savvy, So there's that when it comes to that as well. So I must say that we've been quite impressed with what we have managed to do in the past 80. We're now in year 18, and we continue to do what we do.
Man.
The absolute pride.
It sounds wonderful. Yep. I mean, we're looking at 2 years away from a 20-year journey, Sedibeng, which is really just so laudable. And I think you mentioned just some of the ways in which you're measuring the impact, feedback from the pupils, and also how the teachers are kind of integrating these new ways of learning into the classroom. But what kind of training and ongoing support do the Teach SA ambassadors receive once they are in the classroom environment?
So we do what I mentioned earlier, what we call AIP, which is the Ambassador Induction Program.
Okay.
And during that, there's a 2-week immersive program. One of our last head of AIP used to call it PGC on steroids. Because in that 2 weeks, they not only learn pedagogy, classroom management, but one of our biggest pride is the fact that we bring leadership skills and soft skills in our program. We teach them how to not only teach and be able to use the right content, but we also, to a great extent, teach them how to integrate themselves into the community. Because you don't come in and teach, you do more than that. And what we do in the 2-year program that we put them in, we do what we call whole school development. So we're not only concerned about the teachers and the learners, but we also look at where the gaps are in the school. And we have ongoing support. In our ongoing support, we have one of our staff members here, Ntate Musiwa, who goes around to all the schools, sees all the ambassadors, talks to them, find out where the gaps are, where their problems are. He comes back to the office to feed us that information, and we have quarterly workshops for all our ambassadors. So during those quarterly workshops, that's when we deal with the gaps. Is there something that we're doing well? Is there a trend that they want us to look at and teaching them? We also partner with a number of other NGOs. For instance, one of our partners is Heal SA. And what they do is that they do the psychological wellness of not only ambassadors, but of the learners in the schools that they're in, So we try and bring in partners who just make that 2 years so much more richer, not only for the ambassadors, for the learners in those classes, but for also the management of the school.
What a brilliant initiative, Sedibeng. I can imagine how valuable it is for the learners. You mentioned how the ambassadors are close to their age. They speak a similar language. One of the biggest challenges when we were growing up is that your teachers were so advanced in age. You were sometimes scared to approach them and ask further questions and get involved in a particular subject. But a brilliant initiative that you are running. If we'd like to get involved, corporates, private citizens, where can we find out more information?
We have a website, www.teachsa.org.za. I'm looking at my marketing person here. So we are online. Our offices are in Midrand. We are, though, nationwide, by the way. We're in all the provinces. We wait for that call, from different districts for us to come in and bring our teachers, our ambassadors. But we also partner with a lot of, in the past, we've partnered with a lot of mining companies, at some point even with ESCOM, to then go to under-resourced schools, particularly village schools, because those are where the biggest needs are, really. So we're always, knocking on various corporate doors to say, partner with us. How would you partner with us? We've got different pillars from recruitment selection. We've got the AIP. We've got the placement of ambassadors, ongoing support. And then ultimately they become alumni. And when they do, after the 2 years, we still call them in and say, come and continue. Let's make sure that we have more ambassadors on the ground. Because this is, we're 18 years in. We want to be 40 years in, 60 years in, Yeah. So we are always, so corporates, please, we're always appealing for support. There are various ways. We always ready with a proposal. We love partners because we believe that we can only continue to be successful through partnerships. So collaborations and partnerships for us are very, very key.
Indeed. Sedibeng, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and all the best with Teach South Africa. Sedibeng Ngubane, CEO of Teach South